Hi guys, in this video we are going to see what are the top frameworks for Android development. So first, let's get started with the Flutter framework. Flutter is a Google's contribution to cross-platform application frameworks, and its first iteration called Sky was designed to run on the Android operating system. Flutter was released in 2017, making it one of the newer application development frameworks. According to 2021 research, Flutter is the most popular Android app development framework out there. It has rapidly climbed to the list dominant position after being recognized as the most used framework after the React Native in 2019 and 20. And now it is preferred Android frameworks for 42% of Android developers, which was almost 38% in 2020. So what's special about Flutter? In comparison to React Native, Google Flutter uses its own canvas to render the app components, and that's why it relies on manual app updating efforts. It can be both an advantage or disadvantage at the same time. If you want your app component to stay exactly the way you design them, then Flutter will work for you. It is efficient to render 2D multi-platform apps and which can be the applications for iOS, for Android, and for other platforms, and also features exceptional testing capabilities. It employs an 2D rendering engine, Skia, for UI visuals, creating according to both Google's material design and Apple's Cupertino widget style. It allows developers to manage the visuals in very detailed and specific manner so that your widgets or visuals will look and work great on all types of mobile devices. What are the some pros and cons about Flutter? Flutter features an extensive app development toolbox that include pre-built widget. You don't need to write the code for the some parts such as buttons or text box. They are already available and you just need to import and use them. And it allows developers to create new widgets or customize the existing ones. And with the support of tech giant as Google, Flutter is highly reliable. It has fast code implementation, which allows for speedy bug fixes. And there is another framework called as Xamarin and React Native, which are open source, and similar to these frameworks, Flutter is also an open source platform. Okay, but what are the some of the cons that Flutter have? Like Xamarin, Flutter apps tends to be large, forcing developers to compromise on images, animations, and the number of libraries used. And it does not allow any use of native APIs, meaning developers need to use third-party package or write their own code. For example, for doing the API calls, they need to use some third-party libraries such as Axios or something. Okay, so let's get into the next framework, which is the React Native. So starting with React Native, Facebook created React Native in 2015 as an open source cross-platform framework. It can be used to develop apps for iOS, Android, UWP, and web. With React Native, developers can build mobile app using React and JavaScript, along with native Android app development capabilities. This is the best Android app development framework in Tatida's global opinion. Some of the best applications developed with React Native are AirNup and Discord. And what is the special thing about React Native? The key feature of React Native is that instead of simulating native performance like other frameworks do, it allows developers to construct user interface from the system's native building blocks backed by React special type of JavaScript. And since native Android blocks are utilized, React Native apps render as if they were the native application. And the best thing about this Android framework is that you don't have to update or redesign native Android component used in the applications, but they auto update simultaneously with the system's general updates. It allows keeping many apps in a good shape for free with no additional work from app developers required. What are the pros and cons for React Native? The pros are React Native implements native UI components giving app a high quality user interface with a native look. React Native expansive library of UI components speeds up development time. The framework gives developers access to native functionalities like camera and other features. It allows developers to use platform specific native code to optimize individual apps, and developers can apply immediate changes to an app without having to recompile it. It is supported by Facebook, which ensures reliability, and React Native is an open source framework making it free to application developers. And what are the cons? As React Native built-in navigation is not as seamless as Android native framework navigation, which is not a big deal, but the platform is also not geared to build complex animation or complicated transactions, which some pro developers may feel. But with a basic development kind of view, React Native is the best option. The third framework is Xamarin. It was founded in 2011 and it is owned by Microsoft and has been around for nearly a decade, making it one of the most oldest Android app development framework. The platform provides developers with libraries and tools specifically compiled for building apps on Android, iOS, macOS, and others. What is the special thing about Xamarin? Since Xamarin is a part of Visual Studio IDE, it allows for writing cross-platforms applications in C Sharp, whose code is almost the same on all platforms, and about 75% of the code base is identical. And due to its best qualities, many respected companies in solid industries like healthcare have opted for the Xamarin in the mobile app development projects. Although Xamarin is a free and open source framework, commercial large-scale software development requires a license for Microsoft Visual Studio IDE, and that is associated with considerable additional expenses. What are the some pros and cons for Xamarin? The app which are developed with Xamarin have high native-like performance. Its extensive ecosystem with C Sharp, .NET, and Microsoft Visual Studio makes it one of the most complete mobile app frameworks available. And Xamarin's platform-specific libraries gives developers access to API from Google, Facebook, Apple, and other platforms to enrich your app's capability. Enhanced user experience tech to Xamarin vast template library that lets developer reuse code across different platforms or manually customize the elements. Like React Native, Xamarin is open source, making it free to small development teams. And taking consideration into cons, updates to Xamarin are often delayed before being reflected in the framework's tool, which sometimes causes issue with individual apps. Xamarin apps are often larger than the native apps, adding about 5 MB for new release and which might be up to 20 MB for rebuilds. And Xamarin is not well suited to build apps with complex animation or complicated game features as in React Native. Some parts of the UI code may need to be rewritten in Java or Kotlin to customize your Android app. Next framework is Apache Cordova. Apache Cordova, formerly PhoneGap, is a free and open source Android framework that enables hybrid app development in many basic web development languages and technologies such as JavaScript, HTML5, and CSS3. It allows building multi-platform apps with single code base, that is accelerated titanium, accelerated titanium. And talking about the special thing about Apache Cordova framework is that the UI of Cordova assembled app technically functions like WebView, running an app in native containers. So it's safe to say that Cordova bridges mobile and web application development. This framework support many major platforms including Android, iOS, Windows, Ubuntu, OS, BlackBerry 10, etc. So developer creates the app code one time and then it converts SDK files to different platform formats. Talking about pros and cons. About pros, it is steady, battle-tested framework and it supports multiple platforms including Unix like. Cordova runs your HTML or JavaScript code within a native container that grants it access to the device native functionality. It is a unified JavaScript API that allows you to create reusable code for nearly every mobile device on the market. And Cordova uses plugins to connect its JavaScript code to native code in the backend. And there exists a huge choice of plugins for different platforms and features. And thanks to the web container, the Cordova based web applications translates your HTML application to the native environment. And the missing thing or the cons about the Cordova is that you have to execute your app in the web view. It cannot achieve the native performance levels, and some third party plugins are deficient, outdated, and crash multiple times. So configuration can be complicated as it requires the command line. So the code should not include a lot of platform specific conditions when it comes to cross platform programming. So this was all about the Xamarin. Now let's look into the another platform, which is Ionic. So Ionic is an MIT certified free and open source app development framework that uses a combination of HTML5, CSS, JavaScript for cross-platform application development. It allows the development of interactive hybrid apps and progressive web application. Talking about special thing in Ionic, it features intuitive UI components and offer faster development time, making it quite powerful and reliable framework. Also, it offers a lot if cross-platform functionalities and plenty of software tools that deeply facilitate the development of Android mobile apps. Most of the code is developed predominantly in the browser with an exception for native mobile device functionality that you have to test and debug using a handheld device. What are the pros and cons for this Ionic? It requires skilled web developers, and with the help of the skilled web developers, one can easily master the build of Ionic app, which ensures faster development and programmer onboarding time. To get started, you will need only Angular, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And the Ionic framework easily integrates with other libraries, just like AngularJS. It utilizes Cordova plugins that allows it to access native components of mobile system and complete control over the application building process. It has a powerful community of more than 5 million developers which are ready to offer their advice and tricks. And talking about cons, debugging can be a pain point as unclear messages makes it hard to identify the source of error. The same thing happens in Spring Boot. If you get something, if the program is crashed, then it is a tedious task to debug and find the exact source of error. And the native plugins in Ionic are necessary for accessing many native functions but are not fully stable and can conflict with each other. Builds of Ionic are prone to sudden crashes for hardly detectable reasons. This was all about Ionic. So in this video we had seen 5 frameworks which are used in Android development. In next video we will see such another frameworks for Android. So for now, bye bye.